I call the Honourable Chester Borrows.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. It's a pleasure to take a call. At the beginning of this election year, it's interesting for people, or it's good for people, to have a look a little bit below what's immediately in front of them. In other words, don't always judge a book by its cover, and I guess that's a fair enough comment after listening to the last week. It's also interesting to remember that there's a sales pitch that goes on. So the National Party has started off the year with a bit of a hiss and a roar. It's talked about education. That's right. But it's been interesting to watch the Dave and Norm Smoke and Mirrors show if they've responded to that. Because John Key was talking about education. And he put up a number of ideas, 4 of them, which, what do you know, the education sector surprisingly love. He talked about rewarding outstanding teachers by paying them more and giving them more responsibility. He talked about keeping good teachers in the classroom and then allowing schools to work together in clusters so that those who are good principals, good at administration, good at getting the best out of their staff and their students are able to help other schools within that near vicinity. And we know a lot about education in South Taranaki because we remember the legacy, and if the member for Hutt South does the Round the Mountain cycle tour next year, he'll be pleased to note that on a certain farm around Aurora there's still a billboard that says it's still open season on mallards. So many years after the event. But Aurora School, yes, you managed to leave that one open, former Minister Mallard. And I'll tell you what, the headmaster at Aurora School, Heath Chittenden, is bound to be an expert headmaster because he is, or maybe that's politically incorrect, an expert principal, because that guy is a gun. At about 35 years of age, he is getting incredible results out of those country kids. So National came up with a policy that talked about rewarding outstanding teachers. It talked about making schools better. It talked about keeping good teachers in the classroom and helping kids learn at a cost of $359 million. And what did Labor and the Greens say? What did the Dave and Norm Smoke and Mirrors mantra say? They said, don't go looking there, don't go looking at education, because we haven't thought about education just yet, but you have to go and look at poverty. Don't look at education, look at poverty. Look at all the free money we will give you if ever we have the privilege of being in the Treasury benches. What they didn't talk about in respect of poverty, for instance, was insulating 250,000 homes. That's right. Which mainly affecting people who are living below the minimum wage or at the minimum wage. That's right. It's working to put young people in a place that where they do get to school, they can learn and they can listen and they can achieve. In the same way, for instance, the extension of breakfast in schools program, but they didn't want to look at that. They wouldn't even recite that, and they don't want to address education, and they haven't said what they will do. In my own area of work around welfare fraud, the National Party says we'll stop welfare fraud, we will hold fraudsters to account. The tens of millions of dollars that people are getting away with ripping off the system, we are going to claw back for this government so we can take that money and then we can put it into areas principally around health and education and welfare. But what do Dave and Norm Smoke and Mirrors shows say? Don't go looking there, don't go looking there, don't look for welfare fraud. They say people only offend because they are poor, forgetting the fact that hundreds of thousands of people receiving welfare benefits in this country don't rip anybody off. They're just struggling as hard as they can to make ends meet, and they can do it without committing crime. But Labor and the Greens say, no, don't go over there, don't go over there. We're only doing it, National's only doing it to distract us from the fact that their rich mates are ripping off the tax system. And yet what did Labor do when they were in government around taxes and around clawing back tax rip-offs? Nothing. What has National done in the last 3 years? Increased $200 million of new spend to get that tax back. What we know is this: most beneficiaries do not offend. We've spent $200 million of new money from this government on a zero budget to get that money back in so that we can spend it for the good of our people. That's right. For the very good of the people that those people on the other side are saying that they represent. But what that would-be government is also saying is this: you can't fight two types of fraud at the same time. Well, I reckon that's rubbish, and this government's proving it's rubbish. We can think about things and do things at the same time. We can catch people ripping off welfare, and we can catch people ripping off taxes at the same time, and we're prepared to put our money right there where it counts. And then we've got two views on the economy. So we've got the National Party saying, let's grow the economy, let's do business, let's help businesses create new jobs, let's back Kiwis to do more in their own country, and there's several examples of that around farming, around the movie production and those sorts of things. But Labour's and Greens, here we go again, the Dave and Norm smoke and mirror shows say, don't look at all those good ideas. We're not interested in helping anyone do business because we know that in spite of the fact that 95% of everyone in this country is employed by a business rather than being self-employed in any event, we know that every one of this is Labour's mantra. Every one of those employers just gets there by standing on the necks of the people that they employ. It's a doomsday scenario. They keep talking about a manufacturing crisis in this country, forgetting that we actually have an economy that is doing incredibly well by international and independent assessment, and we know it, and unfortunately they know it, and the problem for them is they now have to get off this horse. They have to change horses because they're on a horse that's been saying the economy's stuffed, we're going nowhere, it's all wrong, it's doom and gloom, there's nothing we can do about it, it's had it. Yet those international commentators independently are looking at our economy and saying, rock stars. They're saying this is damn good. By international standards, this is great, and we need to get there. So at some stage over the next 5 or 6 months, we're going to have to see Labour and the Greens get off the horse that says we're going to hell in a handcart in this economy and get on a horse that says, actually, this is pretty good, and we would do all of that stuff, and we would do more. But no one's going to believe him. No one's going to believe him because they've actually counted every step that this government has taken in order to create a better country for New Zealand in respect of business, in respect of welfare, in respect of health, and respect of education. We're going to be good stewards of the taxpayers' dollar in this country. We're going to get country back into surplus, and we're going to pay off debt rather than leaving it for our kids. But Labour is saying, no, 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 we're going to spend more, we're going to deal more, somehow we're going to try and balance the books in spite of the fact that we're going to spend more, and we've cancelled our really crazy promises in order to pay for our not-so-crazy ones. And the analogy was made this week that if you go down to Kirk's and you don't buy a suit that's in the window for $1,500, it doesn't mean you've now got $1,500 more to spend because you never had it in the first place. So somehow dreaming up that because you're not spending $1.5 billion on dumb ideas doesn't mean you've now got $1.5 billion to spend. And already just a few days into our first term of this year and an election year, Labour and the Greens have already decided they've got $750 million to spend that isn't there. So here's where the Dave and Norm smoke and mirror show falls down. It depends on Kiwis being too stupid to see through those smoke and mirrors in any detail, and you know what? They aren't. Unlike Dave and Norm and their fellow travellers, I've got faith in the New Zealand and Kiwi voters to see through these kind of tricks. When they do have a good hard look, here's what they'll see. Under National, they'll see a strong and stable National-led government, backing teachers, growing the economy, being responsible with money the public gives us, reducing crime and making our streets safer, upfront, transparent, clear with the New Zealand public in our policies. And when they look at the other side, they'll see that the Labour and the Green government, Dave and Norm, smoke and mirrors show they're against anything that might create a job. They'll cripple the economy under red tape and bureaucracy. They'll make excuses for criminal offending. And it isn't upfront with the real details that they are making, as we've seen just in the last few days around the baby bonus. They depend on smoke and mirrors to obscure the fact that they have no answer for the positive effective policies of this government, and they will depend on the Kiwis being too foolish to see past their bribes, their half-truths and hyperbole, and Kiwis aren't that dumb.
I call Dennis O'Rourke.
Mr Speaker, Chester Borough